just in the last few months of last year, and just as I said, a few people that I've been chatting with, this topic has really resonated with people. It's really just, in a time of reflection. In December, we kind of reflect on the year that's gone by. Most of us are too tired to really reflect with any meaning, though, in December. But in January, when you look at what you achieved last year and the progress that you're making with your own goals and your own commitments that you've made, a common thread from a lot of people that I've spoken to has been acknowledging the people that got you here. And we've referenced this before. We've spoken about that before, just in terms of allies and influencers. But this particular theme is the speakers that we have today, three amazing ladies. This is really from the relatable component. When we think about careers, you'll see there's some young ladies on this call who are doing workplace experience during their learnership, and then we've got some career veterans on the call. No one really knows how things are going to turn out. There's so many factors that influence your journey, and there are factors in your control, and most of them are outside of your control. But one constant is the people that come onto your path. Whether they're family or friends or colleagues or students, people that you network and study with. And this is what today's theme is about. So a very big welcome to all of you. It's really lovely to have you here. Mish, you still on my screen, so I'm just going to ask you, if you don't mind, to take over the admitting of everybody as they come in.
No problem, Lau.
And to get going today, so as everybody knows, I do record it and we load this recording onto our YouTube channel. It's a public channel, so you're welcome to share the link and distribute this, and of course to encourage more and more people to join us and to be a part of WIT. Just for everybody's FYI, the WIT Network is a global organization based in the US. And the whole point of it is a women in technology network, and each area or each country will have different priorities depending on where they are and the goals they've achieved. And here in South Africa, we continue to focus primarily on using this as a networking opportunity. We do have a LinkedIn group that we share information, and the ladies that join that LinkedIn group are encouraged to share content and to share training opportunities and all sorts of things. We also have a Facebook group. Thank you to Michelle for curating that for us, those of you that are active on Facebook. And then the mothership, the WIT Network mothership, where if you want to become a paid member and access their content and participate, if you're part of a global organization, they have a very strong presence in the USA, and you might find that your organization is already a member. So the networking component of WIT is really important to us, and we are growing our Cape Town presence. So I'm hoping that our May event, which we are planning to have as an in-person event, we're going to have a parallel event in Cape Town and be able to start growing that network there as well. The second component is to just provide opportunities, whether it's through mentoring or learnerships or sponsorship, to get more women and girls into STEM industry and to pursue careers in technology. As you know, we've got a drastic skills shortage, but there's no reason why we can't attract more women into this industry. And then another component, and it's why we try and get different speakers every event and for them to kind of showcase what they do and their progress, etc., is to support each other, to provide support to the female leaders and businesses. We've had a number of entrepreneurs share their business journeys with us. that's really, really important. And so that's where we are today. And before I introduce the speakers that we have, I'm just going to ask my colleague Claire to pop her camera on, because adjacent to the WIT Network, we have partner organizations that we try and work with closely to drive similar agendas and to achieve, you know, these kind of outcomes. So Claire, if you don't mind introducing yourself and your organization.
Cool, thanks, Lar. So I'm Claire Gibson, work with Lauren and the team at Mint. I've been there for, I think 7, 8 years. I don't even know anymore. Anyway, and what I do in as part of that is I'm also quite involved with Girls in Tech. So Girls in Tech pretty much has the same idea, and that is bringing more women into the industry. And the program that I run within Girls in Tech is the mentorship program, and that's why I'm calling in today. We have a new mentorship program kicking off on the 11th of March. So this is really just a call out. I think it's really in keeping with the theme of those that came before me, because a lot of people who I think on the call today may have been mentored in the past, and those mentors have had a great impact on their lives and on their careers. And really, I'm calling out today for anyone who wants to either be a mentor or who knows of people who would make a good mentee, or even on the call who might be a good mentee, that just looking for someone to give you guidance and just help you on your career path and your life path. It's a 12-week course, so it's not overly intensive. For a mentor, it tends to be an hour or 2 a week. A mentee, maybe a little bit more for their time for reflection. But if anyone is interested, we are on social media. Otherwise, I'll drop my email in the chat, and you can just reach out to me and just, and you can sign up if you're keen. As I said, 12 weeks from the 11th of March. That is me. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, if you can just drop the details into the chat, and those of you that are able to or interested in finding out more, then you can reach out to Claire. So without further ado, because I know how busy all of you are, and hopefully you're either home or at the office, not sitting in traffic, but I know that we've got 3 amazing speakers lined up. So first, I haven't seen Meg on the call yet. Are you here? I know you had a little bit of a debacle to your week. Oh, there we go. Hello, Meg.
I am on the call.
So Megan's going to be kicking us off shortly. To talk about her journey. I have shared everybody's LinkedIn profile at the bottom of their intro slide. I've got to know Megan over the last 2 or so years since she's joined Microsoft, and we've worked very closely together. So I'm looking very forward to hearing about her journey. Our second speaker is Sally. I stalked Sally at the HR Tech Awards last year after seeing her on a podcast or on a video on Instagram discussing a topic that was very interesting to me. I suppose this day of age, that kind of makes you famous when people stalk you down at an HR event and go, I know you, please, can we chat? So I'm very excited to hear about Sally's journey and how, you know, the woman and the allies in her life have shaped her to where she is today. And third, another person that I stalked at the HR event. It sounds like that's what I do. It is what I do. When I meet or hear people that just really strike me as interesting and intriguing, I'm very forward about meeting them and kind of starting going, I'm part of WIT South Africa, and I'd really love to have you involved. And Avanti was very open to that. And again, looking forward to hearing you speak, Avanti. So as I said, without further ado, Megan, I'm assuming you're good to present. I didn't get anything from you, so I'm going to just hand right over straight to you.
Perfect. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
We can. Thanks.
Cool. I'm going to try and present in Teams. This is one of those moments that really shows I have shared the presentation with Lauren before joining the call.
Don't stress, really.
Okay. Let Waiting for my PowerPoint. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen.
It's coming up. Awesome.
Let me know when you can see
Perfect.
it.
There we go. Thanks, Meg.
Perfect. So I'm going to do a very quick intro to start off with. So my name is obviously Megan Smith. I work at Microsoft in our Global Partner Solutions team. Have been with Microsoft for just over 3 years now, and have really enjoyed my time. You know, Lauren, thank you so much for having me, just, you know, obviously as part of this discussion. This is such a big part of my life and so important to me. You know, female empowerment, coming from an engineering background myself, I seem to have found myself in many a male-dominated industry. So I always find the concept of female friendship and sponsorship and mentorship so special. So I wanted to start my discussion by showing you some of the many wonderful women that I've had the privilege of working with. You know, this is just a fraction, and I'm sure a lot of them are familiar to you if you work with the Microsoft ecosystem in any way, shape, or form. But I've been very privileged to not only work with wonderful women at Microsoft, but with a broader partner network as well. So this, you know, relationship, or these sort of relationships have found their way to me over the last few years, and there were a few that I wanted to highlight today, but I truly could highlight so many more. And this starting slide was just to say there are so many beautiful women that I've met over the last few years that I'm so grateful for, and their contributions, whether it was through formal mentorship or whether it was that passing you know, positive comment. There's just been so many wonderful interactions that I could share. I'm going to move to one of my first women. I have 2 women that I'd like to touch on today, and then an ally, which is a newer sponsorship relationship for me. And they've each contributed something different to my life. Like I said, there's these interactions take many shapes. So I wanted to, in the spirit of you know, looking at these relationships in my life centered around gratitude and thanking these women for the lessons that I'd learned from them, right? So my first woman that I wanted to highlight is Ilana, who I'm sure many of you know. And Ilana works at Microsoft. She works in the modern work go-to-market space currently, but she was in the partner team for a very long time. And the lesson I wanted to thank Ilana for is the incredible mindset of resilience that she's taught me. So those of you who've either worked at Microsoft or work with Microsofties know our concept of the growth mindset, right? And it's not unique to us at all, but it's something that we pride ourselves on. And growth mindset is one of those things that's fantastic in theory, but really difficult to practice, right? A growth mindset, something that's easy to start January off with, or to have when things are going well. But when things are tough and when the rubber hits the road, the growth mindset is incredibly difficult to have. And it's really tough to be resilient, and it's really tough to have a positive outlook, or should I even say a productive outlook when things are hard. And Ilana, for me, embodies a growth mindset and a just this can-do attitude in everything that she does. And it's been such a valuable lesson for me, and something that her and I have worked on in many of the difficulties that I've faced in the working world over the last few years. She's just been an incredible example of when things are difficult, she sees it as an opportunity to do better, or to do things differently, or at very least to learn something. And what I often find is that people find that easy to give as advice, but really struggle to implement in their own life, right? It's always easy to tell someone to, you know, think positively and like look at the bright side when it's not you. But in reality, Alana lives that just to the degree that I can't explain unless you know her. And she's just been an incredible example for me. And it's changed the way that I look at work and at my life more broadly, in such a special way. So Ilana for me was almost top of mind when I thought to myself, who would I like to speak about today, and who would I like to highlight for one of the most amazing lessons. So to Ilana Baragwana, thank you for teaching me resilience. My second woman for today is Madeline Gray, who is also probably not unfamiliar to many of you. She works at Microsoft as well, and is also part of the partner team, and has been in the partner industry for many years. So Madeline Gray is a force to be reckoned with for anyone who knows her. And when I joined Microsoft, it was during COVID, and I'm actually quite an introverted person by nature. And I really struggled to come out of my shell. The industry, as we all know it in terms of South African IT, is quite a close community, right? And most people know most people, whether it's from their current roles or previous roles. And I found it really difficult to get comfortable and to find my voice and to be able to share my opinions in, I guess, a confident professional way. It's difficult coming into any new organization, but it was even more difficult when you work with so many knowledgeable and experienced colleagues. And this was also a really nice example of a mentor who I approached quite blankly and quite upfront, and just said we didn't have an existing relationship. We'd worked together, but we didn't really know each other too well. And I put a meeting in her diary, and I said, this is what I'm struggling with. You come across incredibly confidently in your calls, and it's quite frankly something that I'm having difficulty with. How do I do this better? And it was quite an uncharacteristic moment of vulnerability for me, because it takes a lot to say to someone who you don't have such a close relationship with, hey, I'm struggling. And like I said, she's quite a forceful personality, so it was even more difficult, right? Because you're not sure how this person is going to respond. And she was so genuine and responded to my vulnerability with such amazing, I guess, grace, for lack of a better word, right? Not making me feel smaller, not making me feel less than for asking for help. And it so began this amazing mentorship, sponsorship, and friendship with her. And she's just been one of my biggest advocates in my career so far, in such a genuine way. And it all goes back to this thing of being vulnerable and being able to say to someone who does something better than you, hey, I'm not doing so well at this. What do I do differently? And how can I be, how can I do what you do so well in my own way? And she has just been this fantastic example of, or should I say, an example of when it turns out well, when you're vulnerable. She continues to be one of my biggest advocates in my career today. I learned so much from her, and her incredible knowledge of the partner ecosystem, and just her absolute work ethic, and the standard of what she produces is something that I will always look up to. But this for me was, again, one of those examples where just so grateful to have women like this around me, and to feel so supported by them in such a natural, genuine way. And then my final person that I wanted to touch on, and I discussed this with Lauren, was, we're obviously women in IT, but let's also take a moment to recognize the men in our lives who contribute to furthering the careers of women. So this again was maybe a newer sponsorship for me, an individual by the name of Joseph Starwood. So Joseph Starwood, I'm actually in Cape Town at the Mining Indaba right now with Joseph, and he is our global director for mining at Microsoft. And the big thank you to him here for teaching me to believe in myself. And it's such a strange thing, because He's obviously an incredibly senior individual at Microsoft and so knowledgeable and so experienced in his field. And the biggest takeaway from this particular sponsorship was just the amazing amount that he believes in me. So, in comparison to him, I feel sometimes, or oftentimes, should I say, what can I offer him in return? What do I know in comparison? What can I do in comparison to him? And he never fails to make me feel that I have a valuable contribution. So he is a genuine ally for women in mining. He has very close relationships with women in mining globally, the actual organization Women in Mining. And, just again, a very genuine proponent for women both in IT and in mining. And to see such senior, competent, capable, experienced individuals put forward younger women, and not because he's doing me a favor or because he thinks I need a helping hand, but because he genuinely feels that I and women like me have something to contribute that's different to his perspective. I remember a few weeks ago, he'd organized a Women in Mining, chapter discussion internally at Microsoft. And I had said to him, thanks for being a fantastic ally. And he said, it's not an absolute pleasure. It's something so necessary because of the opinions that you bring that are different to my own. And I thought, how genuine, how refreshing, and how important to have allies like that in the IT industry, and to genuinely believe that women, but particularly younger women, women who are early in career, are bringing value to the table. And it's not a favor. It's not a tick box exercise. It's something that he values and appreciates. So this was my third example of just an incredible relationship that I've been blessed with in my time in the IT industry. And I think one of the takeaways here for me was to be bold in terms of your asks of your sponsors and your mentors, and to just remember that you do bring value to all of these sponsorship and mentorship relationships that you invest in, whether you be the mentor or the mentee. A difference in perspective is valuable in itself. So those were my three individuals. I'd love to, if anyone has any questions. Something I really struggled with was actually finding mentors and sponsors. It's something that needs to be so organic and natural, and it's really, really difficult to get right. But I feel like I've got good momentum so far. And again, to those that came before me, whether it was whether they're women or allies, and those who absolutely I'm still to find, just thank you for your contributions to my career, and for teaching me to be a good mentee, I guess.
Megan, that's amazing. And I think that what you have done so beautifully today is the younger women, as you said, early in their career that are on this call. The two things, so I know that I did prep you with the questions I was going to ask today, but you actually built your answer into them. Was the first was around asking for help. How do you do it? Because we've been conditioned to be tough. If you're going to break into a male-dominated industry, they better not see you cry, and you better be tough and aggressive, etc. And essentially what you've demonstrated with the three people and the relationships that you formed there is around that vulnerability of asking for help, putting yourself out there. I saw somebody commented about being brave. So just your feedback here about asking for help, asking for guidance. What is your takeaway on that?
So I thought about this, right? And like, I know I'm showing the pretty presentation of these three fantastic people and these year-long mentorship sponsorships. But the reality is, for the three I'm showing, they were probably, I don't know, in excess of 15 that aren't there because they didn't work, right? And it's really tough to ask. It doesn't get any easier. I mean, to reach out to the global director for mining with zero relationship and to say, hey, I know you don't know me, but can you do this? Is really hard, right? And like I said, I'm not particularly extroverted, and it was something that I really struggled with. And I think you need to make peace with the fact that they're not all going to work. I mean, Microsoft and I think bigger organizations maybe have a lot of these initiatives where you get like there's these matchmaking initiatives and whatever. The reality is they don't always work, and that's what I was saying, that word organic, how do you get it right? It's so unique to the individuals, and you can be coached on being a good mentee all you want. You can prepare for the meetings and you can pick really really senior knowledgeable people. Sometimes it just doesn't work, and that's okay. And it took me a long time to not take that personally. One of my really favorite examples of that was my current manager. When I had first started at Microsoft, so that's now 3 and a bit years ago, we'd been paired as mentor and mentee, and it was not good. It was really, really difficult. It was not natural. It was not organic, and it fizzled and it went away. And he's now become my manager, and that dynamic is so different and it's so positive, and so I think timing's a big thing as well. And people always say, like, be clear on the intentions of the mentorship or the sponsorship, don't waste the person's time, and all of those are very valuable, but sometimes it just doesn't work, and that's okay. And not everyone's going to be your person, and not everyone's going to be your person forever. I personally never let go, so they'll be my person forever, but like not other people. I really don't. But sometimes it's for a purpose as well, right? I'm sort of joking about the not letting go thing, but recently I'd reached out to somebody from our global team because I'd taken on a new partner portfolio, and there was some questions I had, and we had a few sessions, and it was great, and it served its purpose, and it was fantastic, and I'm grateful. And he was very generous with his time, but that was the end of the engagement, and that's also okay.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's something really important. No matter what stage you're in your career, you can't force these things.
Yeah.
There has to be chemistry to kind of create that. And I think it's great that you've defined that. I see Sally's asked in the chat there, what do you think will be the one lesson that you would pass on to somebody you were mentoring?
So I think this one is more personal. I try and be, because sometimes I think the nature of a mentee and mentor relationship is maybe you have I say you have different things to offer, and particularly with the example of Joe, the nature of the engagement is I have less to offer in terms of what I want from him than I can offer him back, right? So in the context of his knowledge with mining, I don't have as much to offer, perhaps a different perspective, but when it comes to exactly what I want from him, I can't offer the same in return. So I'm very cognizant of making the best use of the person's time and showing them that I want to be there. So for example, when I come prepared, and like I said, we've all heard these tips, right? But showing what you lack in terms of perhaps bringing in a traditional sense to the mentorship, I like to feel like I'm making up for enthusiasm, for lack of a better word, right? Just showing that you're taking the person seriously in terms of what they say. You've prepared. When they mention it's something that they've read, make an effort to read it, right? And that's what you're going to the mentorship relation, or the mentor for, and showing that you are taking the person seriously in terms of what you've asked them to share with you. Is all the mentor can ask, right? So in terms of what I would pass down to, or something I'd suggest in terms of to a mentee, is take it seriously. It's your own career, if we're talking in the sense of work, and that's all that you can do. So when they suggest something, take it seriously, show that you considered it, and that for me is when I speak to interns, and when they've taken on board something that I've said, it goes a long way in making me feel like they're taking the engagement seriously.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, it's applicable to everyone, but certainly those people that are, you know, starting out in their career, is to really value and invest in building those relationships, whether it's, you know, for a short period or a longer period, but to really be present in that.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Megan? Anybody else? You're welcome to write it, or you can ask outright if anybody's got a question. And you're welcome to reach out. I did put Megan's LinkedIn profile in the deck, but I'll drop the links in as well into the chat. And you can reach out to her directly or connect with her on LinkedIn. Meg, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And I think you have highlighted really core components of the women that came, or those that came before me, in utilizing that knowledge and utilizing that experience so that you can grow as well. And I think you've done a tremendous job. So thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. You know, it's not often that you get to express the gratitude that you have for the people that have forged part of your career path as well. So like I started off saying, there's too many women to thank, but each of those comments, those little nudges, those helpful words make lasting impressions, right? So grateful
Absolutely.
for all of the women that have been a part of my career so far.
Fantastic. Well done. Thank you. Awesome. Next, we're going to have Sally. Sal, if you can pop your camera on, please.
It is on.
Oh, sorry, I've got, you know, Teams, if you're on the wrong page or the wrong slide, you could be on the next page or the next page. Oh, there you are. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, don't say that. There are a lot of Microsoft people on this call, it sounds like.
Yeah. Before, the WIT Network actually used to be part of the IMCP, which is the International Association of Channel Microsoft Partners. And they seeded in 2018 or 2019 and then opened up to all the other technologies. So the other technologies are also jumping on. One of the next speakers is from there and from another technology. But yes, the Microsoft is one of our founding partners. Sal, a very big welcome to you and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to hand over the reins to you to take us through your journey.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you everybody for being here today. It's a Wednesday afternoon and it's late, and I really appreciate everybody showing up. Before we get into it, I want to just ask maybe if you can pop for me in the chat. A 1, if you have mentored somebody. A 2, if you are currently being mentored. 3, if you're in the market. Or 4, you've not considered it before, but it's something that you might be interested in after hearing Megan give such rave reviews. Okay. Oh, look at that. Claire, I want you to keep an eye out for the number 3s because those are your people. We're doing some data collection for you here.
Free advertising.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of people on that, and that's awesome. I think it is a really great, it's really a great thing to both be mentored by somebody and also to be able to share what you know. I think we often underestimate how much value we can add to other people's lives. So even just a different perspective or a different viewpoint, I think if you are thinking about it, it can be an incredibly rewarding experience both ways. So definitely something to have a look at. I'm now going to ask the question that everybody asks. Can you see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
All right. So hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all. My name is Sally Acton. I'm the CEO or the Chief Empathy Officer of Talk, and we are an employee experience consultancy. Up on the screen is all the official stuff and all the big hoo-ha. I'm going to skip over that because I don't think that's what we're here for today. Here's the lowdown on me. I've got 3 kids. They're 24, 12, and 11. My eldest, who's about to get married, is not mine biologically, but is mine in my heart. My son is the baby one. He has ASD, or autism spectrum disorder. He has Asperger's. And the middle child, who you can see in the middle picture, is she's my mirror, my mom's revenge for my bad behavior as a teenager, and my best human. I love strength sports, endurance sports, and generally being a lunatic when I'm not working. I've run talk for the last 15 years. I love bullet points. I love eating cake and dirty jokes. And strangely enough, I studied hospitality. I've only recently got my CRP, my Certified Reinvention Practitioner, and my change certificate. But my background's hospitality. I did not come from tech at all. My big claim to fame was the fact that I could fold a serviette into 20 different animal shapes, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, really held me in great stead when I moved into technology. I suffer from imposter syndrome 9 days out of 10, but I'm working on it, and it is a work in progress. It's something that I constantly wake up and I'm like, it's okay. You don't have an MBA. It's fine. Everything's going to be okay. You're going to make it work. So I'm not sure if anybody else has ever suffered from imposter syndrome. You can stick up a hand or give me a thumbs up, but it's certainly a big challenge for me. My journey. Now, I wanted to show you this because I think that we often think that people's journeys are very linear, and it's something that Lauren and I were discussing. So let me show you. 1998, I head off to study. I go and do my dating myself. I realize that. I'm sure some of these people on the call weren't even born then, but I went off. I started studying hospitality. After I finished hospitality, I went off to go and run safari camps in Mozambique and Botswana, putting those serviette folding skills to good use. I moved back to Johannesburg and I did a little bit of eventing. That didn't work out. You can see from the little break in the line. No, I'm now going to move into software sales. Why? Basically because they offered me a really nice car and I needed a car at that point in time. So I thought I'd have a little career swap. I also decided at that point, let's get divorced, because that's a fun thing to do at the same time. And after that, I got remarried and I decided in 2009, I am going to start my own company. I started a CRM company and I went off on my own. I made a cracking 500 Rand in my first month, and I was the most insanely proud person of that 500 Rand. I cannot even begin to tell you. It was a big deal. Carry on to 2011, and we then rebranded as Talk, which is my company now. We then had expanded into not only CRM, but customer experience, employee experience, and also a brief foray into data warehousing. I then had, in the middle of my next flight path there, you can see we started a data warehousing company on the side there with now my ex-business partner, and that business went boom. Very big learnings out of that. So 2018, headed off, fresh start, no business partner. And we hit that really fun little interesting spot called COVID. Now, most of our customers that were in the customer experience field with us at that time were all, guess who? Hospitality clients and big, big flight providers. So we all know what happened then. So that was another little interesting boom on that journey. You can see that things are getting a lot more complicated, and pardon the language, but at that point in time, it was all a little bit of a shit show. But, you know, we carry on, we bounce back, we keep going. And fast forward from 2021, we exited the COVID storm and takes us to our current state. Talk is very much focused now only on employee experience. I'm showing you a straight stripe because, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? From here on out, I figure it's smooth sailing. I've done all the booms, but I know in my heart that that's a total lie, and there'll definitely be more curves and bumps, and who knows? But that's where we are now, and we focus very much on employee experience. We look a lot at the data side of it. We work with lots of different technology providers. We work a lot with deskless workers. So we look at the frontline employees. We look at how we can connect them to the to the big companies that they work for. We work across 13 different countries, and at this point in time, I think we're at about 120,000 people that we speak to on behalf of their company and whose employee experience we hopefully impact for the better. So why am I telling you all of these things and showing you what ultimately is really not a good depiction of what a career path should look like? But I think what ends up is most people's career path actually ends up looking a lot more like this than what you're led to believe. So who shaped my way? The person I really want to talk about mostly is my mom. So my mom was, she was at school in the 50s, and someone came around and they were doing tests. And they said to her, "You have the most amazing aptitude for coding. And if you come and join Olivetti right now, we will pay you the cracking salary of 100 Rand a month." And my mom was like, "Yeehaw, that's more than my brother earns, and he's a chartered accountant. So I am going to join Olivetti and I'm going to start coding." So my mom joined Olivetti straight out of school. She launched the first handheld calculator in South Africa and wrote by hand the code for what was then Engen's garage accounting system. They used to write code by drawing out the workflows with the stencil. And my oldest memories of my mom are her sitting on the floor with that really cool 80s kind of perm situation that I see is on its way back, drawing out the code, writing it out on huge reams of paper, and then coding on her 365 machine. Some people will know what that is, but it was a very big machine that took a couple of us to load into the car. And she wrote the first garage accounting system on that. My mom is currently in her mid-70s. She is still one of the lead developers for Bidvest. She wrote their app for their entire logistics system and also consults with their logistics company in New Zealand and writes all of their reporting. And she has no intention of stopping. She loves coding. She loves figuring out how things work. And why this is so important, A, because I think she's just super awesome. The haircut at that point, not so much, but my mom was amazing. She still is amazing. But I think the big thing for me and why I'm bringing this up on the call is, for me, it was never strange that women worked in technology. It was never strange to see a female coder. It was never strange to think that you could work like that and have a family and be an awesome mom and have all these things, because that's what I saw every day. So that was my reality. So in terms of could I do it, it wasn't a question to me whether I could. It was more about, was I interested in doing it? And I realized that that comes from a place of great privilege. But it's, that for me was part of it. And I think the reason why I bring it up is because we are all examples to people that are watching us quietly that we don't know about. We are changing the way that people see women and what they see the definition of success looking like for those roles. And I think that that's really important because we all have such an amazing impact on the people around us. We are changing the way that people perceive it. And that is so incredibly powerful. So the other person I want to talk about is my dad. My dad was an entrepreneur. I think I got my amazing career trajectory from him. He also did a lot of those fall off the wagons, blow shit up, but always managed to bounce back. So definitely learned that. My husband is an incredible human being and definitely my biggest ally. Because of how I work and because of the way that talk runs, my husband is the primary caregiver. If you ever see pictures of him, he looks a lot like one of the Hells Angels. He's got a big beard, he's got a bald head, he's got tattoos and leather jackets. And let me tell you, when he arrives to do netball practice and things with his Starbucks in his activewear with all the other moms, he definitely gets some raised eyebrows. But without who he is, I couldn't be me. And I think that that's a really important thing. And for our children, the gender roles are so interchangeable. Mom doesn't do this and dad doesn't do this. Both my parents do everything. And I think that's really shown my son that you know, that the man can be the caring primary caregiver. You don't have to be, you know, you don't have to be cast into these gender roles. And I think that brings me to my other point, which is to say we have a huge impact on shaping the future generations, not just from how we show up, but how we are intentionally at home and with other people that we influence and other children that we influence. I see a lot of people talking a lot about, you know, I want to be this as a woman, but my son mustn't do this, and my son mustn't play with dolls, and, you know, all of these different things. But if boy children aren't given the opportunity to also care, and girl children aren't given the opportunity to also grow, we are perpetuating those gender norms, and we're not allowing the next generation to rise up. So I do think it's really important that we show up intentionally in the space and think about who and how we want to create that world. The next thing is my coach. I got a coach in 2013. You'll see it coming up later, but if you're going to do one thing for yourself, I would definitely recommend that you get a coach, somebody to hold you accountable, somebody to bounce things off with, somebody to help drive you forward. I've had several mentors in my life. I've been very, very lucky. I've also had the opportunity to mentor a couple of people. It is a very rewarding relationship, and I think Megan just said it so brilliantly and so much better than I ever could. Put in the effort, do the work, and you'll get such great rewards in that space. So I think the one thing I just want to talk about a little bit is limiting beliefs, and there are often a lot of them that come up, but that's something that we see a lot in the workplace, especially with women in tech, and it's about how limiting beliefs are really self-imposed, and there are a lot of them, they show up in a different way. But some of the stories we tell ourselves, and Brene Brown does a great piece on this, but, you know, we're too old, we're not pretty enough, I'm too depressed, I'm embarrassed, no one's going to like me, people will think I'm weird, women are not as good as men with numbers, no one understands my genius, my comedic writing, my vision, someone's already done that, I'll never find someone, I don't have time. There are lots of these limiting beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves, and I think it's really important, and it's definitely work that I recommend that you do with a coach, is to really work out what are the stories that you tell yourself and what are some of the limiting beliefs that you may hold, because that for me has been the one thing that really held me back. And once I got over those limiting beliefs, I was able to really find my groove and find where I fit in. So advice to younger me, if I had to go back, and I keep telling myself this, I don't know if I always learn the lessons, but let's pretend I do. Advice to younger me would be like, get a coach now, be accountable to the future you. Stop marrying men that wear tie-dye. This is a game changer. It's certainly something, make a note of that. It's very important. Being a leader doesn't mean being masculine. Don't confuse that. Don't buy into the story there. Being a leader means showing up as you. Put your hand up to speak, especially when you don't think it's your place. You're going to suck at it initially, and it's going to be hard, but you're going to make a success of it. And the more you practice, the better you'll get. You do not know when the last time for something will be, so make everyone count. You already have what someone else is manifesting right now. So as you sit and, you know, people say, throw all your problems on a pile and you'll always pick your own back up. If you look around at all of the things that you have already, be grateful, see it, recognize it, because a lot of people don't have what we have. And yeah, this is for me, recognize my privilege and be less of an asshole, something I work at every day, trying, not always succeeding, but definitely trying. And Lauren, I'm going to end on the slide that we spoke about, which is kind of the big lesson, I think, for me that I've had to learn, and that is that unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments. And that is something that I think is the one big piece of advice. If you expect something from somebody, whether it's in work, whether it's in relationships, friendships, mentorships, if you don't say what you're expecting from that person, chances are you're going to end up resenting them later. So put up your hand, be brave, say what you need to say. And that's it. Thank you for hearing my story.
So thank you. That was really, really fantastic. As you can see from all the comments, a lot of what you said really resonated. I did just do a snip of your journey because before we get into questions, and I'm absolutely going to ask those of you who've got questions for Sally to line them up. But just before we get into that is, I think if we just go back to your journey slide, I did take a snip and pop it in the chat there. I think it's probably one of the most relatable images for all of us because, you know, we have this concept that life is linear, you know, and things happen in line like this, and so it goes. And those self-limiting beliefs possibly stem from this misinformation that, you know, I can remember in matric, I was at boarding school and everybody had these plans like, I'm going to university, I will then get my dream job and I will obviously be married and then I'll have my first child before I'm 30, because that was what we normalized and society kind of reinforced. But it made so much sense that obviously things will happen in this order, because why wouldn't they? And then, as you all know, life teaches you it doesn't happen like that at all. And what your slide really demonstrated was those boom moments. You know, everybody sees the success. Everybody sees you sitting here, CEO of your own business, 15 years. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. But to just look at your journey and to see those boom moments, to see those misinformed ventures, those COVID, you know, I think that was really, really relatable. And I think that also gave people kind of that capability to acknowledge that you are where you are. It doesn't matter where your neighbor is, where your sister is, you are where you are, and this is the right thing. So I think it's really, that was really a big takeaway. The second takeaway, as everybody's lining up their questions, is around the examples. I use that often, and I remind people, you don't know who's watching you and who's observing you. Absolutely, kids are as anyone who's driven in this traffic with a 6-year-old knows, just one slip up of language and that will come back to haunt you forever. But this now leads on to the two questions that I have for you. From your examples and kind of the role models and the goal models, how do you align with your goal models? You know, when you want to achieve a goal, when you set yourself, whether it's personal, professional, physical, financial, whatever that goal is, how do you find that role model? Where do you go? What do you do?
So I think I definitely have done an exercise where I've looked at all the different roles that I fulfill in my life, and I've worked out, you know, how I define myself, I guess, in those spaces. So I've said, as, you know, as a mom, as a partner, as an entrepreneur, as an athlete, as somebody who wants to grow, you know, really, really looking at those different roles. And I've defined for myself quite clearly what success looks like for me in each one of them, because I think to try and tie it all together and to say I want to be all of these things, for me, feels overwhelming and completely unachievable. So I have every year, like, what does success look like for me as a mom? And I try and look at that single piece, and I'm like, okay, for me as a mom this year, it means spending 30 minutes with my kid, with each child individually at night before they go to bed, so that they feel seen and loved before they go to sleep. That for me is realistic, it's achievable. And if I can do that 90% of the year, that for me is success in that role. You know, and so I try and define them like that, and I break them down, and I try to find people that I admire in each one of those roles. So I definitely don't have one. I have different role models in different spaces. And I look at them and say, okay, cool. They're generally people that I know, because I find that a lot more relatable, because, as well as you said, you can't really believe the glam and the things that you see. You know, I had an amazing experience with another female entrepreneur. I was interviewing her and we had a chat, and you know, and afterwards, a few weeks later, she came and had a conversation with me and told me how depressed she'd been at that time. And us having a conversation had really kind of talked her off quite a serious ledge. I didn't know at the time that she was struggling with that. And I think you know, for me, she was the epitome of everything I'd ever seen. Glamorous and had it all together, running this really successful business. And she looks like a model. And, you know, and I just felt so intimidated by her as it was. And then for her to reach out and say to me, thank you. On that day, I was so lonely and I was so close to just giving it all up, and you know, I just couldn't carry on, and I really appreciated you being there. And I was like, are you joking? I was literally sitting there awestruck through the whole thing. And I think we don't know what everybody's always going through, and people, especially in an entrepreneurship space, people are really lonely. They don't feel that they have people that they can ask for help. They feel like they're being held up to these very unrealistic standards. So I think it is important to really get to know the person, and then to base my goal model on them, on the real person. It also makes it much more achievable for me.
Yes. No, 100%. And I think, to your point, we don't know what other people are going through. We don't know their journeys. And so that vulnerability that Megan spoke about is just so critical, because your behavior allows other behavior. So as people see you being vulnerable, so they can become vulnerable. And before I ask you my last question, I'm going to ask anyone on the call have a question for Sally.
You can tell by the language, nothing's off the cards, so you're welcome to
Yes. Even if you're wearing tie-dye right now, you may still ask a question.
As long as we don't have to get married.
I went to Rhodes. That would have been like a game changer.
Oof, my first husband, tie-dye pants, no shoes, lots of, it was a bad move.
Hindsight is 2020. Okay, so my next question, or the last question that I have, is just around asking for help. So you did speak about especially the gender roles and your husband's role in your life and how you partner, but you know, typically women, and this is a huge generalization, we find it very difficult to ask for help. So in your space and throughout your career, and at those boom moments that you illustrated on your journey, how do you ask for help?
So I am incredibly bad at asking for help, and I have had to take a really long time to learn that I even need to recognize my own flags for burnout, because I always leave it too late and then I end up as a hot mess. So I've had to really take some time to learn exactly what that looks like for me and start actually getting flagged. I've also asked my team to help hold me accountable. I'm lucky I have a very close relationship with my team. We're quite a big team, but we're quite close, and they know that my big flag is when I start micromanaging. So as soon as I start micromanaging, I get a little private Slack and everyone's like, listen, I think that maybe you need to take a check-in here. But I do. I speak to my COO, who's Sarah. She's actually on the call. She's been an amazing support system for me. I do chat with my mom. And like I said, I have a coach. And that has been a total game changer for me, because having that accountability and having someone to soundboard off has helped me realize when I do need to ask for help, and has helped me identify who I need to speak to for that help. So I cannot recommend that strongly enough.
That's really, really awesome. Thank you, Sal. I see there are a couple of comments there. Zandi, who's one of our partners from Girl Code, said she'd love to interview your mom. But yeah, thank you so much. Your share today was really just so relatable and I think very impactful. So thank you very much for making yourself available and joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. And last but not least, we've got Avanti.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. It's really a privilege to be a part of this conversation today. I completely aligned with a lot of the things that both the speakers were talking about. So I don't have a presentation or a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm just going to actually just talk you through basically my 47 years of existence on planet Earth, and hopefully, you know, when we get to the end of it, you'll have a little bit of insights into what has shaped and inspired me in this amazing journey. So I am the head of market HR at Google for Africa. I basically look after 4 countries that Google has presence in at the moment, which is South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, and Ghana. And I've been with Google, gosh, now this year is actually going to be 5 years. I feel like I've blinked and 5 years has just swept through, obviously no thanks to COVID. But yeah, spending 5 years at Google. Prior to that, I was with Citibank, MasterCard. I think there's an American lineage in line with all the American companies that I've been with. So that's a really subconscious, I think I never really thought about it like that. And yeah, always been in HR for almost 18 years. I think it's my passion. I love what I do. I actually love my job. And I get to say that out aloud. I get to wake up every day with some sense of purpose. And I totally understand that it is rare times to be able to say you get up with purpose to try and make an impact and do something. And I think that's the benefit and the privilege that I've been allowed at Google to actually do, is have an impact and help change one person's life in some shape or form. The topic of inspiration and the topic of women who have paved the path in terms of our journeys is really an incredible topic, because you know, I absolutely give credit and will always give credit to a few people that have been part of this journey. As an Indian woman, you know, I came from a very traditional, culturally hardcore environment where, you know, traditionally girls were not allowed to drive manual cars. It was taboo. It was like, you're a girl. Why would you want to drive a manual car? So tradition and culture plays a lot of shaping how we have journeyed in terms of our experiences. I was the first person in my family to actually break the norm of leaving home at the age of 23, left Durban and jumped into a bus and had my first official job at UNISA. And the only reason I got that job was because I said I could speak some Afrikaans, which was around about, I guess, 60% of Afrikaans. And they called me on a Friday and said, right, you've got the job. I'm great. When can I start? You start on Monday. And I was like, okay, never been to Johannesburg, never put my baby foot or toe out of it. And I had to go back and tell my parents, by the way, I have a job, and guess where it is? And my mother was and is, bless her soul, the pillar of my absolute value, moral, and strength. Because she was very non-traditional. She was like, you're going to go, I'm going to get onto that bus with you, and you're going to start a life. And so many of us, you know, from my generation, sometimes did not have the benefit of that support structure. And we really trying to right the wrongs of the past. But my mum was, you will absolutely do this, and you're going to make it, and just be strong, and let's go in there. My dad cried for a week. He was like, when are you coming back home? I got to have you back. You're my eldest daughter. And my mom was like, she's going to be fine. And boy, oh boy, did I have a lot of pride. I made it work, you know, started from very humble beginnings of, you know, you want to make this work and prove to yourself and your family and your community that you are worthy. You can make this work. You can do this. So started off at UNISA, worked my way through a few recruitment companies, realized I actually like people. I like being involved with people, and I want to make a difference in some small way. The starfish analogy, if some of you know about that, is, you know, you see a beach with 1 million starfish and you want to try and save them all, but the person throws one starfish into the water. And the other guy asked, well, why are you only throwing one? You need to save everyone. Why can't you do that? And the response was, because I only can save one at a time, but that one person and that one starfish makes a difference. So I gave up trying to save the whole world and universe and realized, make it worthwhile and impactful, one person at a time. And that's kind of what I used in my journey. I think the influences from there on, I've learned in my career how not to be a leader by having some of the worst soul-sucking, gut-wrenching managers that I have had in my life. And I've learned and promised myself I will never break a person that way. And I think the reality is, and I've always said this to people that I work with and in speaking opportunities, that I am going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly. The world's not always a really pretty place, and it's tough and it's hard. And sometimes, unfortunately, we are exposed to women that are our own enemies, that are not always your champions, that are not always rooting for you. And that is just the sad reality. If women could be each other's champions without terms and conditions, without being superficial, without being threatened, the world will be a perfect place. But we're not in that environment. I've had some really, really difficult and bad managers, and some of them happened to be women. And I think back, but why would you be like that? Because you're a woman, you should understand. And I'm not here to be a threat. I just want to learn and grow. And I just want to make my way and my path in this journey and basically have an honest experience. But very quickly, the realities of corporate started sucking me in. And the phrase of it's a man's world definitely crept into how I viewed certain women in leadership. And that's really unfortunate, because some of the men and the allies and managers that men that I had experienced was such a different experience. And I kept thinking to myself, oh my goodness, do I get to say that I actually prefer a male manager now because the woman experience has been so bad? And I really feel that there's way too much drama and backstabbing and really a horrible experience. And then you get a male manager and he's like, just get the job done. I just need you to do this and move on. And that's the reality I'm sure a lot of us have been exposed to. But then also I take a step back when I reflect, is that, but that's the journey. And there's reasons why people have these experiences and personality types. And, you know, I don't want to go through to a whole academic discussion about that, because we could unpack this for days with Freud, with Maslow, with all the new theories that come out. But I really think that you, all 35 of you around this call, as leaders and future leaders, have absolute control over how you respond and how you are going to impact the next generation of leadership and leaders and female leaders or male leaders or whichever type of leaders that are going to be looking at you and watching you and observing you. Because what you do has a direct ripple effect on not just the individual. It has an impact and a ripple effect far-reaching in terms of further family. You know, I'll give you a very simple example because it's a real example. When I was at a previous company, my kids are 15 and 14, and I have 2 teenagers, and, you know, they contribute to a lot of my gray hairs. But when I joined Google in my first week, I had to leave the office early because I had an accident and I needed to go back into hospital and they needed to take out stitches. It was my week 1. I went looking like a little chipmunk in the office, and my manager looked at me like, why are you here? And I'm like, I'm here, it's week 1. And on the Friday, I left work early. I left at about 3 o'clock and I got home at 3:30. And my kids looked at me, and they were fairly small, and they said, Mommy, I hope you didn't get fired. And that broke my heart, because my kids were so conditioned to me leaving work after 6 every day, for me to putting work as a priority, because I was never allowed the benefit of being with them at certain times. They were terrified that because I came home early, there was something wrong. And that in itself to me was earth-shattering. And I realized the impact one person could have on an entire family. So let that sink in, because how you show up as an individual absolutely is going to condition not just the next generation, but it's going to condition a good few other people in that person's life. And I really took a step back to realize there's something fundamentally wrong and broken here. And that person happened to be a woman with children, but because she chose to approach her management style in a very different manner, where a bum in a seat equated production, and you will not leave the office, even though you've completed your work, before I leave the office. So if I leave at 8 o'clock, you as HR get to leave at 8 o'clock. That had seeped into the reality that, you know, a lot of us had to experience outside of the office. So I would really encourage all of you, as you think about whether you are a mentee, a mentor, whether you're a coach or a manager or an individual contributor, is how you show up is as equally as important as the person that you are managing or dealing with. And at Google, this is what I really value, is that at the end of the day, my manager told me, hey, Avanti, just remember, as HR, you're not performing open heart surgery. You're not actually going into a theater to pump somebody's heart. However, if someone is crashing, be there in the moments that matter. And for me, that is also profound. Be there in the moments that really matter, because employees don't need you all the time. They're quite independent. You know, you hire intelligent people to get the job done. But when they do need you in that moment, when they actually come to you to say, I need this, or I need help, or I have a situation, or I need guidance, or I need to take my kid to the doctor, those are the real moments that matter. And that is when, as an HR practitioner and as an HR professional, that is when I really show up to say, right, let's have a conversation. So it's not being there, everyone, everything, and all the time. It's being there in the moments that truly matter. And yes, we all have high-powered jobs. We are literally fighting through life at the moment. We've got commitments, we've got priorities, we've got life basically happening to us. And on top of that, you have the demands of work, because, I mean, let's face it, 40% of unemployment in South Africa is absolutely eye-watering, okay? How are we contributing to keeping ourselves afloat as women and juggling those 500 glass balls? And I've been there, and I totally get it, because to drop one of those glass balls, you know, it's earth-shattering. But I'm not going to wear, I need to learn that what is going to be a priority, what is going to add value at that moment that matters for my kid, for my husband, for my work, because they all should be getting the best part of me when I'm giving it to them in those moments. And I think that bringing it back to the concept of women in leadership, I think we've evolved a little bit in the past 10 years. And I think what was really interesting to have conversations with a few academics is that we've moving into the direction of transactional leadership, which is basically using hiring IQ. How many times is when you go to an interview and they test aptitude, they test your maths, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this because maths is not my strongest point. And they put all of these interesting psychometric tests, because why? Cognitively, your EQ means, or should equate to, intelligence and whether you're going to be successful as a leader. Please, all my gods, I'm hoping we've moved from that experience into more of what we call transformational leadership. Because as a transactional person, you are very, and don't get me wrong, this was relevant in the past, where you have reward and punishment, where you have typically old school management, you have a one size fits all, treat everybody the same, there's no leeway in anything, but your cognitive approach to your people is very boxed, right? Command and control, very policy, A, B, C, D, do it that way. If not, then you're out the door. But we've moved and evolved, and COVID, I think, was the trigger as well to really cement that the ways of working and the evolution of the workplace globally and locally has completely changed how we're approaching leadership in its true form. We're looking at leadership now as something that's called transformational leadership. Because believe it or not, EQ, IQ, and SQ is actually where the coming of merging of all the elements where we should be using your left brain and your right brain. Emotions are important. Psychological safety is important, but it doesn't mean it's all fluffy. It's all those soft skills. Those days of soft skills are gone, because being able to have an emotionally intelligent, empathetic conversation, team, doesn't make you any less of a leader. It actually enhances your credibility of authentic leadership, which I think a lot of our speakers actually spoke about today. So when you're looking at your leadership profile and your leadership skills and where is this evolution going to happen, please do not discount the power of transformational leadership qualities, because your IQ, your human centricity, your HQ, and there's something that's also called your psychological capital is very, very, very powerful. And you don't have to be a man or in a man's world, or a woman trying to be a man with the qualities which are viewed as masculine, but is actually transactional. But it doesn't make me any less of a leader if I'm using my 3 Qs to have a conversation with you and to build and grow and develop the person that I'm speaking with. So I think that evolution and that leadership style I want to bring in, because I really think that as we look to hone in as a woman in tech, really needs to be further than just how do I survive in a man's world? It's how are you growing as a leader and utilizing skills in a world that's actually evolving every single day. Tech is moving at the speed of light. Google, there's things that are coming out. I'm like, but you just launched this 3 days ago, and I just had to learn this 3 days ago. What happened? How do I know? You got to pivot so quickly. You've got to be agile in terms of looking at new ways of learning. Definitely not linear learning, because I think those days are also out the window. Is what are we doing to enhance not just the learning experience at our desks, but how we, and this, I think this conversation and this group is a testament to beyond the classroom learning, because engaging and having people around a call or a team is experience, actually is a really good teacher. And those types of conversations and dialogues really enhance your learning trajectory, which is not just academic at the end of the day. So I think in terms of, some of the great leaders that I've had and some inspiration that I've taken, the one person that really stands out in my corporate world is, some of you, maybe you know him or not, but his name is Ajay Banga. He is the ex-CEO of MasterCard, and he currently is the president of the IMF. And I will always remember what his analogy was. He always said, in terms of leadership, be the hand on the back and not on the face. And what that really meant was, catch your people when they fall. Don't push them down as a leader. But when you need to catch them, you then get to be the hand on the back to push them forward. Because at the end of the day, we have a start, we have a journey, and that journey is going to end eventually. But the longer we hold on to traditionalistic ways of keeping things to ourselves, the next generation is never going to get the growth and the development and the opportunity to experience failure. Because we've put the fear of, if you fail, that means you failed in life, or you're absolutely useless. And I don't think that's what our intent should be. So be the hand on the back. Be the person that is ready to catch someone, or the person that your team, or the person or employee, when they do fall, and allow them to fail. Some companies actually pay teams to fail, because how well can you fail means you're going to be really building something really great. Sundar, our CEO at Google, actually was someone that failed quite a bit in Gmail, and then great, look what we have, right? So failure isn't a reflection of something that is broken. It's an opportunity for something to be built that's even better. So, you know, I think the opportunity, the new ways of approaching your growth, your development, your engagement, the sky's no longer the limit. It's what do you want? How do you want this? Use your allies, use your coaches, use your mentors, but also trust in you as well. I think that for me is really important. And, you know, I think moments like this and environments like this where STEM and where you're trying to make a difference is don't boil the ocean. Start off with something small, because to boil the ocean means that there's going to be a never ending journey of, I don't know, what ifs and maybe and could be's. So take that moment, have that reflection, and trust in yourself, and look at the new opportunities that you've all brought to the table in terms of being around this call. So I think I'm going to stop there. I know we might be out of time, but
Thanks.
I thought
no, Amanthi, that was really, really fantastic. And I think you started off with the tradition and culture, and I think that resonated with so many people on the call. You know, there are so many of those social constructs that prohibit what we think we can do, or what we think is available to us. So I think there were a lot of us that giggled with you describing how your mum jumped on the bus with you and left your dad behind to cry. You know, I think just in terms of challenging boundaries becomes doable when it's done. You know, and I think so that's definitely the one takeaway. The other one, which I saw from the comments, definitely resonated with everyone, and that was how not to be a leader. You know, we focus a lot on all the people that have shaped us from a positive impact, and you know, that powerful influence that we want to emulate. But equal to that is the behavior and the attitude that we don't want to emulate. So that was really, you know, thank you for sharing. I know, Precious, are you still on the call? You did have your hand up in the beginning. Have you still got your question ready? I'm not sure if she's still with us. Maybe she'll jump back on. Avanti, so one of the things I do want to ask you is just around your role as a mentor. So you've obviously had mentors and you've reached out to allies and sponsors and that type of thing. But how have you mentored in your career? How have you, young people, new people, etc.?
Sure. So I think as a mentor, I've approached it as I'm not here to direct. And I think my job is to, and it's not even to offer solutions, it's to listen as a mentor first. And it's to unpack with you. If you tell me you need to build a house, we'll sit down together and say, how many rooms? Do you have plans? What kind of house do you want? Where's the location? Have you thought about how many bricks? Oh, you have 5 bricks. A double-story house is going to take a little bit more of that. So, you know, especially in HR, the people that I have mentored have been in, most of them have been in HR. It's really trying to find what is it that you want out of this relationship. And it's got to be reciprocal, because when you're reaching out to someone, you're reaching out for something. It isn't because I have nothing better to do with my life. I want something from you, whether it is the guidance, whether it is an overview, whether it is something as simple as I need some sense of direction. So you've got a problem, or you've got something that you want answered, but I don't direct, I don't dictate. I sit down and I co-create or co-converse with you, and you come up with what actually works for you. Because my frame of reference and what I view as a house is very different to what you are going to view as a house, if I can just use a very simple analogy. So when you're looking to partner with a mentor, what exactly are you looking to get out of that relationship or that conversation? And a lot of times, you know, you reach out and someone says, oh, but I want an executive as a mentor, or I need someone. who is on a similar level as me, or somebody in another company or different industries. And that's perfectly fine. There is no hard, there's always going to be, options in terms of what's the ideal or what works, but it's got to work for you. You've got to walk away from that conversation with something. But that takeaway needs to have some value add.
Yeah.
And that for me is very important, is that it can't just be, okay, let me sit and complain about my manager. But what are you doing about this? How are you engaging? So it really comes back to the individual in terms of what they want to get out of it. My style, as we've said, is not dictatorial. It's not dictating. It's a guide. It's a navigator. It's an open map, because you're sailing in a direction. Are you ready? Are you equipped? Do you have everything to get onto that journey in terms of the direction you've chosen?
That's fantastic. Vanti, thank you very, very much. Really insightful. I think a lot of what you spoke about resonates with everyone. I especially liked how you ended on the failure, because very often that's what we're most afraid of, is failing. And I think to normalize failure and to include it as part of your journey is it's so helpful and constructive, because it frees people up to take a chance, to risk. Yes. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, really, your share was so authentic, and I think you've really left people with something to think about. So thank you very much. And to Megan and Sally, really, the three of you really took the theme to heart today. And I think it's been a wonderful start to the year for WIT and for the content that we share here. So thank you to the three speakers, and to all of the ladies that joined today, and those of you that are going to catch up on the recording later. Thank you very much. Really positive and powerful. I appreciate all of you making the effort to join us here today. And I look forward to seeing you at an in-person event probably in May. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Laura.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.